Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome. Today we're going to be resolving our coverage of the case of Christine Banfield, and how her husband did everything in his power not only to betray her trust, but to tarnish her memory. As this is our third and likely final video on the subject, links to the previous videos will be left in the description box down below, should you stumble upon this video before the others. The first video in the series goes over Christine's life in detail, how she believed she was in a loving marriage with the man who would later betray her, and how he came up with the plot to ultimately kill her. It also includes our analysis of their initial interaction with police after the murder, where Brendan made the choice to feign an injury, believing that it would make him more believable. The second video goes over Brendan's arrest and his direct examination in court, where he remained emotionally detached when talking about his deceased wife, and then blamed her for the murder. And finally, he attempted to portray himself as a loving, devoted husband and father who carried out multiple meaningless affairs. I highly recommend those videos, but as the coverage is over 4 hours long, we'll do our best to summarize here. Christine Banfield was, by every account, a compassionate and deeply devoted woman. As a pediatric intensive care nurse, she spent her entire career caring for critically ill children under immense pressure. It was demanding, emotionally exhausting work, yet colleagues consistently described her as calm, gracious, and endlessly kind. Even people who only knew her in passing remembered the impression that she left. Outside the hospital, whatever time remained belonged almost entirely to the two people she loved the most: her husband, Brendan, and her daughter, Valerie. Before Valerie was born, Christine would help Brendan with the math tutoring business that he owned. She also joined 2 adult sports leagues, simply because she enjoyed them, and she dedicated every spare moment to her family despite the physical and emotional toll of her career. The vast majority of people viewed Christine as a loving, gracious person, but there was one person who viewed her a bit differently: her husband, Brendan. Christine treated him like an equal rather than someone who required constant supervision or validation. He was her husband and partner, the man she chose to spend her life with, and she treated him as such. From her point of view, it was an equal partnership, one where they could depend on each other. But during their years together, Brendan began to resent her. When they met in college, most of her free time was spent on him, doting on him, planning dates, and planning their future around what he wanted. But now she was more focused on Valerie, and he would go so far as to say that he felt she gave the best of herself to everyone else, and he had to settle for what was left over. When Christine came home exhausted after long shifts, he ruefully interpreted her fatigue as indifference, that she was willfully choosing to make him feel uncared for. The fact that she had responsibilities beyond him made him feel insignificant. Notably, Brendan had never had any discussions about his feelings with Christine, and decided the best path forward was to begin a number of affairs. He would portray himself as something of a serial womanizer during his testimony, though he had a hard time independently validating his stories. His work with the IRS frequently required travel, giving him ample opportunity to pursue affairs with women across the country. According to Brendan, Christine discovered only 2 of those relationships, neither of which he considered particularly meaningful. Then he met Juliana. Juliana was the family's newest au pair. She was just 21 years old when she moved into the Banfield home, and Brendan quickly took a liking to her. As an au pair, she moved to the US with very little. She had no family or friends in the area. She had a tentative grasp on the English language, and the only people she had any sort of relationship with was the Banfields, which put her in a relatively vulnerable situation. But Brendan seemed to enjoy that fact. Juliana, his employee, had to center her days around him, and that small bit of power immediately went to his head. Both heads. Eventually, the two would begin having an affair, directly under Christine's nose. Brendan would actively besmirch his wife to the young woman, telling her repeatedly that Christine was a terrible mother, and he felt trapped in their relationship. He presented his marriage as a prison and a sham, one which he was powerless to escape. Brendan told Juliana that he hated his wife and went further to state that she was a danger to Valerie. When she would question why he stayed, Brendan would explain that the courts would likely not believe that Christine was the evil harpy he portrayed her as, and that she would probably get some amount of custody. This, he claimed, would lead to his daughter being abused horrifically. He framed himself as powerless against his wife and the justice system at large, and ultimately he opined that everything would be better if Christine would just drop dead. We have found absolutely no evidence to support Brendan's claims that Christine was an unfit, abusive mother. It should also be stated that this point was not mentioned when Brendan testified, either because that there's evidence against the claim or that the defense knew actively besmirching the victim would only make their client look worse. A more likely explanation as to why Brendan made these claims is that Brendan simply wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to continue sleeping with his young employee, who made him feel special and important and young, but didn't actually want to uproot his life in any meaningful way. But he also didn't want the 21-year-old whose validation he sought to view him as a spineless, nutless loser. So instead, he attempted to reframe himself as a noble, long-suffering victim of an evil pediatric intensive care nurse. You know, the classic lie. Brendan also seemed to understand how leaving his wife would be viewed by his friends and family. If he were to leave his wife for the 21-year-old, they'd likely believe that he was going through some sort of midlife crisis, that he was just the same as every other middle-aged man who would leave their wife. And then, of course, buy a red sports car, move to Las Vegas, drop the top while getting totally sun-bleached, listening to Ariana Grande's new single, all the while pretending that they're not getting any older. The affair would likely be seen less as a genuine relationship, and more like a middle-aged man detonating his marriage in pursuit of someone younger to appease a wounded ego. But saying as much to his new 21-year-old girlfriend would seem pathetic. And over time, those conversations became increasingly dark, and Brendan would openly wish for his wife to die. He made it seem that his wife's death would go on to solve a number of logistical problems in his life. So, a divorce would involve custody battles, financial consequences, public embarrassment, and the near certainty that his affair would become known. But if Christine tragically died, the narrative changed completely. Brendan would not be viewed as a husband who abandoned his wife for a younger woman. He'd be viewed as a grieving widower. His relationship with Juliana could then be framed as something that developed naturally in the aftermath of a tragedy. And in that scenario, Brendan would lose absolutely nothing. The affair would remain hidden, and he could then move forward without having to accept responsibility for the destruction of his marriage. Brendan's background in law enforcement had likely shaped the way he approached the problem. It wouldn't be enough to just kill Christine, as statistically, he would be immediately viewed as the most likely suspect. The more important objective was controlling the police's investigation and building their narrative surrounding Christine after her death. He needed to ensure that he was never ever viewed as a viable suspect in their eyes. So instead of constructing a story that made Christine sympathetic, he constructed one designed to humiliate her. Brendan and Juliana created an account on a fetish website using Christine's identity. The account described a woman interested in violent, non-consensual role-play scenarios involving knives and home invasions. Their plan was to lure a man to the house under the impression that he was participating in a consensual fantasy. Brendan would ensure that the front door of the home was unlocked, remove Christine's ability to call for help by putting her phone in a different room, and then leave the house before the man arrived. Meanwhile, Juliana would reportedly remain nearby as a lookout, monitoring the neighborhood and alerting Brendan once someone approached the home. At that point, Brendan could return to the scene as the concerned husband responding to an emergency. Acting as the hero, he would interrupt the assault in progress, kill the intruder, and then kill Christine if she was still alive, framing the murder on the man who had assaulted her. The intruder would be framed as a violent sexual predator. Christine would look like a helpless victim, and Brendan would emerge as the grieving husband who arrived too late to stop it. Christine's death would appear random rather than personal. Any evidence of his infidelity could remain hidden beneath the chaos of the scene, and the man lured to the house would irrevocably be tarnished. Friends and family would feel as if they had never even known her, and Brendan would be viewed as the poor stooge whose wife had cheated on him and caused her own death. In his mind, the plan was perfect. Juliana Perez was arrested 7 months after the murders in connection with the death of Joseph Ryan. By that point, investigators had established that Ryan had been lured to the Banfield home under the belief that he was participating in consensual sexual fantasies, orchestrated by Christine herself. Although forensic testing was still pending, detectives could already demonstrate that Juliana had operated the FetLife account used to communicate with Ryan, and that the fatal gunshot to his chest had come from her. But investigators never believed Juliana had acted alone. The online profile contained an extraordinary amount of intimate detail about Christine's private life, details Juliana would not be privy to. Whoever created it appeared to possess knowledge that only a current or former sexual partner would reasonably have. There was also the sophistication of the scheme itself. At just 21 years old, Juliana spoke limited English and had little familiarity with American criminal investigations, as well as online fetish communities or the painstaking effort required to construct a believable digital identity capable of framing someone else. Just as detectives concluded, Christine could not have authored the messages sent in her name. They also concluded that it was not possible for Juliana to have independently engineered such an elaborate scheme. That left one obvious candidate, someone who stood to benefit from Christine's death. Someone with investigative experience and a clear understanding of how police evaluate homicide scenes, Brendan. Juliana spent the next 10 months in jail maintaining her innocence. She insisted investigators had misunderstood her relationship with Brendan, claiming they had only become romantically involved after Christine's death, despite evidence suggesting otherwise. Throughout her incarceration, the two remained in frequent contact, often communicating through Juliana's mother. Brendan reassured her that he believed in her innocence and repeatedly promised that everything would eventually work out. Yet evidence later suggested that he had anticipated the possibility that Juliana might become the investigation's primary suspect from the very beginning. Brendan understood how digital evidence could be traced. He knew investigators might eventually determine that Christine had never created a FetLife account and could potentially identify the device responsible for the messages. So, according to the prosecutors, he carefully insulated himself from that risk. He ensured he was away from the house during many of the online communications, either traveling for work or placing himself somewhere that security cameras could verify his whereabouts. If investigators eventually unraveled the original plan, Juliana would possess the means, opportunity, and apparent motive, while Brendan maintained a carefully constructed alibi. Ideally, she would never be arrested, but on the off chance that she was, he could once again cast himself as the innocent victim. Despite his careful planning, more than a year after Christine's murder, Brendan Banfield would be arrested. Contrary to later defense arguments, his arrest was not prompted by Juliana suddenly turning on him and striking a deal with prosecutors. It came after forensic testing finally confirmed that Joseph Ryan could not have killed Christine. The blood evidence had clear signs of staging, which meant that the story that Brendan had so carefully constructed was a lie. The clearest example came from the blood found on Joseph Ryan's hands. According to the story Brendan and Juliana initially told investigators in the body cam footage, Ryan had attacked Christine with a small kitchen knife after they interrupted him inside of the bedroom. Had that account been true, Ryan's hands should have been saturated with fresh blood from actively cutting Christine's throat. Instead, forensic analysis observed that there were ribbon-like bloodstains or patterns consistent with blood being transferred onto his hands after the fact, rather than being deposited during an active assault. The evidence suggested that his hands had been manipulated after the blood had stopped flowing, meaning that Christine was already dead when the blood was transferred. If Ryan had never stabbed Christine, responsibility for her murder inevitably shifted to the only person remaining who had touched the murder weapon, and both the victims' bodies. That would be Brendan Banfield. When prosecutors presented the forensic findings to Juliana's attorney, she finally admitted that she had taken part in the murder plot. Recognizing the weight of the evidence against them both, she agreed to plead guilty to manslaughter and cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. If Brendan proceeded to trial, she would testify against him. But Brendan, once again believing that he was smart enough to outfox the entire justice system, would mount a frankly ridiculous defense. In our last video, we reviewed Brendan's direct examination, which went so poorly we were frankly left frustrated. Brendan had failed at almost everything he had set out to do. The crux of his legal argument was that the state had maliciously set him up, purposely pressuring Juliana to flip on him for nearly a year while incarcerated, all because they simply didn't want to believe the facts. And after months in prison, while hoping to get out, she eventually took a plea deal that required her to testify against Brendan, that the state's entire case hinged solely on her testimony and nothing else. And yet, that was hardly brought up in his direct examination. His lawyer didn't ask him if he felt as if he had been targeted maliciously by the police from the beginning, or if he had been pressured in any way. This is likely because, based on all the evidence that's available, that didn't happen. In fact, based on the multiple body cam videos, it's clear that police were extremely delicate with Brendan in the initial stages of the investigation. When Brendan ultimately decided to take the stand against his lawyer's best judgment, their goal would be to make the prosecution's portrayal of him look outlandish. They would attempt to showcase that he was a loving, devoted husband who would never hurt his wife, much less orchestrate a harebrained scheme like this, and he failed to clear even one hurdle. He refused to give Christine even the smallest amount of praise on the stand, going so far as to skirt the question of if she was a good mother. He repeatedly referred to Valerie as being his daughter and not their daughter, which demonstrated how he had divorced Christine from the family unit. Similarly, he couldn't help but smirk when recounting the story of her sexual assault and murder, which mainly had been pointed to as being a case of duping delight. In worse still, he attempted to claim that his wife was into violent sex and pornography, with again absolutely no evidence. He came across as smug and arrogant, refusing to address the evidence that the prosecution had so carefully presented in the case. To say he did badly was an understatement. His testimony was not as explosive as others we've covered like Ali Abulaban or Tony Todd, but it was no less damning. But he was still entirely unaware of that fact. He seemed to believe that because he had kept a cool head, that would be enough to carry him through to a not guilty verdict, but that was far from the case. The following is the cross-examination as uploaded by Court TV.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. So let's understand. This is the first time you've told this story or any story about what happened in the bedroom on February 24th, 2023, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you did not tell the police on that day in the bedroom. You did not tell the police on that day in the hospital. You did not tell them when you were back at the station, correct?
Judge, I'd object. May we approach?
You can approach.
Sorry, thank you. Let's try that again. You didn't tell the police in the house, you didn't tell them in the driveway, you didn't tell them at the hospital, you didn't tell them back at the station, correct?
I said what I did on the 911 call. I was not questioned by the police at the house, in the driveway, in the ambulance about what had happened.
Okay, but you were questioned at the police station. You didn't tell them then, right?
Actually, I was not questioned at the police station.
Okay. It's been 3 years. You have not had an opportunity to tell the police in the last 3 years what happened?
Yes, they have requested to speak to me. The police did request Detective Bryant, I believe, requested to speak to me at the hospital, not at the police station. And yes, they did request to speak to me through my attorney subsequently.
We are less than 2 minutes in, and things are already going badly for Brendan. The basis for Brendan's defense is that the police have erroneously focused on him and Juliana, pressuring his younger girlfriend to testify against him, and presenting a case that has no evidence. But here he admits that he had not given the police a full recounting of events prior to his time on the stand, which is deeply abnormal. One would think that a loving husband who had attempted to heroically save their wife from a sexual deviant would have likely had no issue giving his statement to police. In the past, we have discussed how it's always in your best interest to ask for a lawyer when talking to police, even if you're completely innocent of any wrongdoing. But refusing to give a direct statement about what occurred the day of a murder, which you were a witness to, is nonsensical. The very fact that he wasn't made to give a witness statement in the direct aftermath shows some of the preferential treatment we discussed earlier. We've researched cases where a victim is forced to give a statement while hysterically sobbing, where individuals are kept in interrogation rooms until they write down what happened, and yet Brendan was allowed to skirt all of that for over a year, choosing to move on with his life instead of helping the investigation in any meaningful way. It's obvious as to why he did this, because he didn't want to get pinned down to any version of events that would later be proven false. In the small bit of information he had given to police in the direct aftermath of the murders, his story was already shown to be impossible based on the blood evidence. If he had given an even more detailed story about what he had done, he would have hung himself out to dry. But the most notable issue here is the fact that he purposely hindered the investigation. However, there is something a bit more interesting about how he answers the prosecution's question. He's being asked a simple yes or no question, that being if he had no opportunity to give his version of events to police in the 3 years that have elapsed since his wife's murder. There are two possible answers. Yes, he has had the opportunity and simply hasn't taken it, which would make him look more guilty. Or no, he hasn't had the opportunity, which is why this is his first official version of events, which is obviously untrue and would make him look foolish. So when Brendan answers the question, he says yes, but he doesn't stop there. Simply answering the prosecution's question would be admitting fault of some kind, and he understands that, which is why he adds the superfluous detail to his answer, nonsensically correcting the prosecution about when he was first asked to give his version of events. It's interesting to watch, because Brendan's main focus here is on winning the conversation. He doesn't want to concede any ground or admit fault, even though it would actually benefit him in this case. So instead of answering the question he was asked, he answers the question in a way that makes it seem like the prosecution has snickle-fritzed in some way. Sure, he just admitted to purposely not telling the police what happened to his wife the day of her death, but she didn't even know when he was first asked to do that. So she's the one who looks like an idiot and not him. So he wins.
Okay, and you were given the opportunity to tell a court what happened when you were brought in to testify at Juliana's preliminary hearing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and at that point in time, you didn't tell anybody this story, right?
I was advised that that defense of others or is not relevant for preliminary hearings, and it was my intention that I was going to testify at Juliana's trial.
Okay, but at the preliminary hearing, you didn't even admit to Christine being your wife, correct?
That's what I was instructed to by my
I see.
attorney.
Okay. So now that you've heard all of the evidence, every possible hearing that could happen in this case has happened. Now you are ready to tell us what happened. Is that accurate?
I was ready to tell what happened at Juliana's testimony, at Juliana's trial when that was scheduled for November. And
Okay.
I've been waiting to do that for mine. I was expecting my trial to be earlier than this too.
That fundamentally doesn't change the fact that he was only willing to give his official version of events when he was given all the evidence in the case. Brendan is such a genuinely slimy little weaselly guy, it's remarkable. The attorney is expertly pointing out that Brendan was only willing to tell police, the court, and the public what happened in an official capacity once he knew everything that they did. That he was absolutely against talking to the police or anyone about what had occurred until all of the evidence was laid out in front of him, so he could attempt to explain away everything that happened. That is an objective fact in this case. But agreeing with that would also make him look guilty, so he tries to deflect by saying he would have been ready to say all of this earlier, had the information been presented before now, as if that changes anything. He essentially agreed with the point, but did so in a way that he hopes sounds like a denial. One of the most frustrating things about Brendan is that he is not a good liar or manipulator. He's endlessly bland and boring, but he thinks that that makes him seem trustworthy and believable. But it doesn't. It just makes him aggravating to listen to.
But at no point in time have you reached out to law enforcement to tell them, at no point have you had your counsel reach out to law enforcement to tell them this story.
Actually, I
of you
did
protecting
have-
your wife. Excuse me, I'm not finished. You have not asked anyone to talk about how you saved your wife or tried to save your wife, have you?
Actually, I did. I told counsel that I would participate in any of the civil investigations that was going to be involved with my agency, and that I would talk to them regarding this case as they required.
Okay, did you do that?
They did not take it up, was my understanding, because I believe the Fairfax police did not want them to.
Okay, understood. Your affair with Juliana began in August of 2022, correct?
Yes,
Okay, you took trips together, correct?
yes,
You communicated with her on Discord, is that correct?
yes.
Tell us a little bit about Discord. Is that a messaging app that is secret, if you will?
No,
No? Okay, it's on your phone?
yes.
Okay, and the two of you elected to communicate that way. Why not with Facebook Messenger like you communicated with Christine, your wife?
I think Discord is my favorite messenger app, and I use it a lot, both with my friends and the gaming groups that I was in. Christine did not use Discord.
Okay,
So this is a pretty sneaky admission, which Brendan likely did not intend to make. Brendan liked Discord, but mainly used it to talk to his friends while they were gaming. It's also a form of communication he used the most with Juliana, which would automatically provide a sort of cover for their inappropriate conversations. Christine likely knew that Brendan liked Discord, and she probably knew what a notification from the service sounded like, and associated that sound with him talking about gaming with his male friends. She didn't associate him using that service with romantic or sexual communication, the same way she might have associated him getting messages via Facebook, or WhatsApp, or other texting applications. It's a seemingly innocuous detail, but displays just how much thought he had put into his relationship with Juliana, even though he claimed he barely cared.
you indicated earlier in your testimony yesterday, I think, that this affair with Juliana was really a nothing, right? This was just an affair. You had had others. This was not a relationship, correct?
I would say that it was a relationship, but it is an affair, but I wouldn't categorize it as serious.
Not serious. Okay. Did you love her?
There was points that I told her that I loved her.
You told her that you loved her, but you didn't actually love her.
I would say I would say that I had feelings for her, but they weren't nearly as strong as feelings for my wife.
Understood. Okay, so let's take a look. Judge, I'd like to have displayed to the witness and counsel, Commonwealth's 244. All right, so Mr. Banfield, these are your Discord messages with Juliana. Do you recognize the username APOCD2?
Yes, that's my
A little
Discord.
bigger so you can see. Has some more numbers after that, D21?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that's you, right?
Yes, that is my Discord.
Okay,
Name.
and Juliana is identified as Juliana, is that correct?
It appears to be.
Okay. So if we look at line 30, which I'll highlight for you here, February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2023, Juliana tried to break up with you, right?
Juliana broke up with me numerous times.
Okay, on this occasion, she said, I told you I'm seeing other people. We spoke about this already. I won't be going, speaking of this trip to New York that you were going to take with Valerie,
Yes.
right? I'm sure you two will have lots of fun, something to that effect, right?
Yes.
Okay. This upset you, didn't it?
No.
No? Okay, you beg her in the next several messages to please talk to you, correct? How are you? Do you want to talk? We can chat. We'll scroll up so you can see more.
And those are a different day, that appears.
Well, it looks like it's within hours. Yes, midnight happens and we've moved into another day, but you're still asking if you can talk to her, right?
That appears to be what it says.
Okay.
Brendan is smart enough to understand the implications of the questions that he's answering. He knows that if he says that he didn't have strong feelings for Juliana, the prosecution will show multiple examples of him saying that he did, which will make him look like a scumbag and a liar. So he states that he did tell Juliana he loved her, even though apparently he didn't, which he doesn't realize also makes him look like a scumbag and a liar still. There's something about the way he answers that reminds me of a small child who is petrified of taking any sort of responsibility for their actions. When asked a yes or no question, he can't give a straight answer. When asked about something that he did the day before, he has to clarify it in a way that he hopes trips up the prosecution and makes them look foolish. And here, when asked about a screenshot of his conversation with Juliana, he can't agree that this is a conversation that they had, only that it appears to be one. That the messages appear to show Juliana breaking up with him and him messaging her repeatedly to talk, as if this piece of evidence could be forgery of some kind. He's not directly claiming that it is, but just that it could possibly potentially be one. This is the sort of behavior that repulses people subconsciously. It immediately makes someone read as deeply untrustworthy and unsafe, because it shows an unwillingness to take even the smallest amount of responsibility. If you encountered someone like this in your daily life, they'd maybe make you feel slightly unsafe, though chances are you wouldn't be able to put your finger on why. And yet, Brendan believes that he's outsmarting everyone, that by continuing to answer these questions in a sneaky little way, the jury is viewing him as a hapless victim in these proceedings. But the opposite is true.
Judge, I'd offer into evidence Commonwealth's 244, the Discord messages.
Any objection? Okay. All right, 244 in evidence.
And Judge, if that's been published, the jury will let it linger for a second, and then if we can take it down. Judge, if we can move to display to the witness and to counsel, Commonwealth's 245. Mr. Banfield, I'm going to just scroll through it. Let me know if you recognize this letter.
Yes.
All right, do you recognize this letter?
Yes,
And this is your letter to Juliana,
correct.
written while she's incarcerated, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. Is it fair to say that in this letter you profess your undying love for Juliana?
yes, it appears that I was definitely in love with her definitely starting in the summer of 23.
Oh, okay, so it was just before she was arrested that you were fully in love with her?
Well, that's when we had an opportunity to actually have a bit of a relationship. With other points were obviously very separated. I mean, I was still working a lot. Christina was obviously still around, and I was spending a lot of time with her. So it wasn't really until the summer of 23 that we had a lot of time together.
Okay, but in this letter, you're talking about the memories of times you spent together before Christine's death, correct?
It seems like some of them are before and some are after.
Okay, and the long hot cuddle, was that before Christine's death?
No, that was after. We rode a bike and went to lunch and got caught in the rain.
Okay. Judge, I'd offer this is Commonwealth's 245.
Any objection? No. 245 in evidence?
Pausing simply to note that the letter is being displayed on a monitor on the left side of the screen across from the jury, which is why so many people in the court are looking that way.
And again, you describe here in the very first paragraph-ish, you came here and we fell in love. But you're suggesting that that love didn't happen until after Christine was dead?
As I said, that we did have feelings for each other prior, but I would not describe them as the level of feelings that I had for my wife of 19 years.
All right. Judge, if I can discontinue the display.
All right.
And if I can have Commonwealth's 246 shared with counsel and the defendant. Mr. Banfield, this one's 14 pages, so I'm not going to belabor this, but this is another love letter to Juliana. Is that accurate?
No, it looks that way.
Judge, I would offer this into evidence as Commonwealth's 246.
Any objection?
I don't know that there's a foundation for him
I'm
identifying
sorry.
it, Judge.
Microphone, I just can't hear you.
Sorry, I don't know that he's actually identified it. I think he's just agreed with her
Oh,
statement.
I'm sorry. I thought he said, yes, this was his letter to Juliana. This is your letter to Juliana?
Yes.
All right, 246 in evidence?
And here you said that she's your gym partner, helped you to be the strongest in your life. You've never had a consistent partner before.
Yes, that was referring to a gym partner.
I am obsessed with your happiness.
Yes.
But again, all of this is after Christine
I mean,
had passed?
if you look at that, it also is that I declared that she was a hero because, in my view, she saved my life that day. I think it's easier to fall in love with somebody that saved you.
It's becoming more and more apparent that Brendan doesn't understand that he is a poor manipulator, that his little clarifications are making him look worse and not better, and that by continuing to deny reality in this particular way, he's making himself look more and more guilty. He has a habit of looking for approval from the prosecution or the public when he makes these small statements. He looks up and down as if to check and see if he's being believed, or if that changes their line of questioning. He's looking for validation, the same way most liars do. Most of the time, when a person is lying directly to someone's face, they're hypervigilant to signs that their stories are being believed. The facts of their story don't matter, so long as the person across from them believes them, and they will adjust their story to try and get the response that they want. Brendan wants the jury and the general public to believe that he was only in love with Juliana after his wife's murder, that he only proclaimed his undying devotion to the 20-something because she saved his life, and nothing else. But that flies in the face of every other part of the letter, and given that his writing is being prominently displayed for the entire jury, his manipulation falls flat.
All right. And I'm going to have you take a look, Judge, if we can pull this down.
That's fine.
Commonwealth's 247. Do you recognize this item?
Yes.
All right, and this is another love letter to Juliana?
Yes.
All right. Judge, I'd offer this into evidence. Is Commonwealth's 247.
Any objection?
No objection.
247?
Okay, and if we can pull this down. If I can have you take a look at Commonwealth's 250. Do you recognize this letter?
Yes.
Again, you to Juliana?
Yes.
And in this one, you're discussing baby names for your future children with her?
That is something that she wanted to talk about.
Okay. Judge, I would offer this into evidence as Commonwealth's 250.
Any objection?
No objection.
250 in evidence?
All right. But you are contending, again, these feelings, these very strong feelings, these let's be together for the rest of our lives feelings did not exist when your wife was alive.
Correct.
Okay, and they certainly did not motivate you to kill your wife.
Juliana and I weren't even together when Christine died.
All right. You had broken up, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you need to kill your wife to get her back?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Relationship does qualify as a fetish, as a fetish is defined as an intense, recurrent, and often necessary focus of sexual desire or arousal tied to a specific inanimate object, non-sexual body part, or non-normative situation, given that one doesn't typically pay for someone else's expenses or lifestyle at the offset of a normal dating situation. That would qualify as a non-normative situation. Moreover, one could argue that a sugar baby situation is similar to financial domination, which is a kink that has gained popularity recently. Prosecution is demonstrating that Brendan, not Christine, has a history of using the internet to start sexual relationships. I would also like to note that whenever Brendan believes he's making a good point, he blinks slowly at the prosecution like a mule.
Another one of your affairs was with your best friend's wife, is that correct?
No. First, he's not my best friend. Number two, they were not married. They were not even together at that point.
They were, is that your understanding of what they believed? Or is that how you perceived their relationship? Did they think they were together?
I don't think so. My understanding is that she wanted to be with him, and they were not together at that point.
Okay,
But no, they were definitely not married at that point or anything like that.
okay. But you were married at that point.
Yes, I was married at that point.
All right, thank you. Let's talk about Christine and her apparent decision to solicit someone to fake rape her. You would agree, you have not seen today, nor are you aware of any phone history, computer history, indicating that she was interested in this type of relationship prior to January of 2023, correct?
I was aware that she was interested in this type of thing, but I was unaware of the messages or that she was pursuing this again, as it had been many years since she had expressed those feelings.
Okay, but there is no internet history that you're aware of predating January 2023, correct?
I'm not, could you ask that a different way?
Okay. From what you've seen in court, she sets this up. She's using a profile picture from a gym bathroom with like a Barbie doll. I think it's an Ariel doll in the picture. And that's a photo that she sent to you on that day, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did she have any other pictures in her Facebook cache that she could have used that you're aware of?
I don't know.
Okay, you never looked at her Facebook?
Yes, I look at her Facebook, but I don't use social media very much.
Okay. You presented us with 20-plus pictures yesterday. Were any of those photos available to her? They all came from her Facebook page, correct?
I don't know where they came from. I didn't arrange for them.
Oh, okay. Those weren't your photos that you were sharing with us?
Some of them appeared to be my photos, but I don't know. Some of them, I believe, were my mother's. Some of them, I think, were Christine's. A lot of times, Christine and I, if we were to share photos, we shared them on Messenger.
Okay. All right. And in the pictures that you all had shared on Messenger, there was not a single other photo of Christine where she wasn't in a public bathroom that she could have used as her profile photo?
I'm sure she could choose whatever profile photo she would have wanted. I don't know why. I mean, it appears that she took the photo that day and used the photo that day for herself.
Okay. When these solicitations occurred between Christine and the other users on FetLife, she was looking for someone that she expected to engage with her sight unseen, correct? There were not to be any meetings in public in advance of this hookup, correct?
That is what the messages seem to appear.
Okay. And she was only doing this when either you or Juliana were home, correct?
It appeared to me that it happened when I was not home, based on what was presented today often.
Right, but Juliana was home, correct?
I don't necessarily know where Juliana was at those points.
You just know that you weren't there, correct?
Well, we went through lots of the evidence that showed that there was many times that I wasn't there. There was points that it showed that the messages were logged into from the CBRN email that Juliana states that she has no knowledge of, never logged into, doesn't know the password to. And so if Juliana is the home, whether she is or not, the only other person that is home is Christine
Right. But most importantly, you are not home, correct?
It appears that there was many messages that were sent while I was home and many messages
That's
that were
not what
sent
I
while I
asked.
wasn't home.
I am asking, you were not home.
There is both messages that from when I was home and when I was not home, it
Okay.
appears.
Throughout the cross-examination, Brendan has done small little things to try and undermine the prosecution. He has attempted to obfuscate their questions, answered in manipulative ways, and tries to confuse the jury in a slow, boring fashion. But here we get to see some irritation, and hilariously, it seems to genuinely amuse the lawyer. He begins speaking faster, shaking his head back and forth while speaking, and generally attempting to talk down to the attorney as if she isn't capable of following what he's saying, which is laughable given how stupid his defense is. We noted in our earlier videos that Brendan deliberately set Juliana up to take the fall for him, should their scheme be brought to light. He worked as an IRS criminal investigations special agent, which investigated identity theft, political and public corruption, internal tax fraud, domestic and international terrorism, as well as Bank Secrecy Act violations, among other potential criminal violations of the Internal Revenue Code, according to the IRS website. He often boasted about being part of criminal investigations and knowing how they worked, more so than the average person. So he was likely aware of the fact that the police would be able to ascertain when and where the fake FetLife account was accessed, and who was in the home when it was. And there were only 2 people who were in the Banfield home every single time a message was sent, Juliana and Christine. Obviously, they wanted to make it appear that Christine was behind the account, but barring her, the only other person who would have the means, motive, and opportunity was his 21-year-old girlfriend. Did Brendan want Juliana to be arrested? No. He believed that he had formulated the perfect plan to properly destroy his wife's reputation to the point where police wouldn't care to continue their investigation. But in case they did do their jobs, he would still be safe. He does try and offer his young girlfriend a slight defense here, saying that she claims that she didn't know the email account password, and therefore could not have been behind the account. But we would have to believe the words of 2 people who have displayed very little moral character. These were 2 people who were comfortable carrying out a multi-month affair while living under the same roof as the person they were lying to, and doing so in front of the person's child. Why would anyone trust anything they said after that, especially if there was direct evidence that shows otherwise? Brendan is hoping that someone on the jury is as sneaky and underhanded as he is. They will say, sure, I would cheat on my wife in front of our child, sneak around in our home and break every vow I've ever made to them, but I'd never consider hurting them.
Okay. So the person that she picked again was one who was willing to come to her home, not a hotel, without any sort of public meetup first, as seemed to be the ask from most of the other participants on FetLife. Accurate?
I didn't read the other messages between the other people.
Okay. And this person needed to be willing to bring a knife, correct?
I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't see an ask for the knife.
No problem. You were present for your daughter's birth. You remember that?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, were you aware that Christine received medication to address her blood clotting disorder?
My experience is that she did not, that they tested her in her prenatal experience and that she did not require a medication for it, but they were going to monitor her for it during the delivery.
Okay, because you were aware she had a blood clotting disorder, correct?
I am aware that she has a blood clotting disorder.
Okay. When you set this whole thing up,
I didn't set this whole thing up.
I'm sorry, when Christine set this whole thing up, it was scheduled to occur minutes after her family was leaving the house at 7 a.m.-ish, correct?
I don't know what time her family was leaving the house.
Oh, you hadn't shared with her your plan to go to your meeting early the next morning?
I didn't have a meeting the next, I'm sorry, can you ask the question again?
Sure, the night before on the 23rd,
Oh,
right?
the 23rd, sorry.
When she is setting this up, she's scheduling it to occur at 7:20-ish a.m., which was going to be minutes after everyone had left the house to go to the zoo, to go to the big meeting, right?
That is what the messages seem to say.
Okay, and are you telling us that your wife was not aware that you had this big meeting scheduled for the 24th?
She was aware that I had the meeting scheduled.
Okay, and was she aware that the nanny was taking your daughter to the zoo?
It appears to me that she arranged for Juliana to take Valerie to the zoo. She got the parking tickets to take her to the zoo. She had planned it, I don't know, a week, 10 days prior.
Right, and the zoo opens at 8 o'clock and everyone's leaving at 7, but she scheduled Joe Ryan to come over at 7:20. Is that correct?
I don't know what time she scheduled exactly.
We've noted numerous times now that Brendan likes to answer the prosecution's question in underhanded ways, and for the most part, the way he chooses to respond is meant to invalidate their implications. He didn't want to say that he refused to give his version of events to the police, so he corrected that they had asked him on 2 different occasions. He didn't want to say that he felt strongly for Juliana during the affair, so he said that he told her that he loved her but didn't really. There's a degree of self-preservation, which makes sense given the circumstances, but in the past 5 minutes, he has just become needlessly difficult. For the past few days, he has been on trial for murder. He has spent hours in the courtroom every day listening to experts, officers, and everyone in his life give evidence either for or against him. That's all that he's been doing, without the reprieve of a phone or iPad to provide him any sort of distraction. And yet, he has started contending that he's unaware of any information that has been presented thus far. That even though he's been present in the courtroom, listened to every piece of testimony, and considers himself to be a generally intelligent person, he can't agree to any of the facts in the case. Like how he refused to admit that Christine was his wife during Juliana's preliminary trial, or say she was a good mother the day prior. And he denies knowing when his wife supposedly messaged Joseph Ryan. It's petty, but it's all he has at this point. He wants to feel like he is in control, and unfortunately, this is how he's going to be doing it.
And you indicated that you were not aware that she had taken February 24th off until just the day before, right?
That is correct.
Okay, but that's not accurate because her parents were scheduled to come while you were going to be out of town the night of the 24th. Isn't that correct?
I believe they were coming in the evening, and then she would already be back from work.
I see. So your expectation was that she was working that day, but their expectation and everyone else's expectation is that she would be home.
I don't believe it was ever stated that she was going to be home, that they were aware that she was going to be home. My experience was that she was scheduled to work until that day.
But her parents were coming for dinner.
I don't know if they were coming for dinner. I think they were traveling through. I don't know why they were coming exactly,
Okay,
because I think they were going to Florida or continuing on.
okay. And it would be your contention that on the morning of this planned tryst, she took her phone and turned it off herself and put it in the kitchen drawer?
I don't know. I did not see her turn off the phone.
Okay, you didn't see her with her phone at all, did
I
you?
saw her with her phone in the morning when I was getting ready.
You did?
Yes.
Okay, and she was on her phone in the morning when you were getting ready?
Yes, she had her phone in the morning,
And you said that was 6:30.
roughly. I mean,
Okay.
I was in and out getting ready in that morning, so it's hard to say an exact time.
So then would it surprise you if the digital forensics, Mr. Lidsky's work would show that she was not on her phone at 6:30 or really any time before or after that within
I
a,
saw her with her phone. It was on the bed. She had the laptop also on the bed.
got it, okay, so she was just with the phone, not using the phone,
Yes.
I see.
Again, this is Brendan being a weasel. During his direct examination, he claims that after he woke up, he saw Christine with her phone. This directly implies that she was on her phone, which he meant to imply that the morning of her sexual assault and murder, she was verifying her plans prior to him leaving. He wanted to make it appear that she was responsible for everything that happened to her. However, when asked about that fact and how it flies in the face of the digital forensic evidence, he now claims that she was near her phone, not on it. And he never meant to imply that she was on it, which is obviously untrue. So let's say you witnessed a mugging on the street. The victim was walking by themselves, when suddenly they were attacked by a stranger. Unless they were actively on the phone when they were attacked, would you mention that they probably had their phone near them to police? That even though they weren't using it at the time you saw them, that it was visible in their back pocket? No, because that's not relevant information. Brendan mentioned the phone because he wanted to point the blame towards his deceased wife. He wanted to say that prior to her horrific murder, she'd been up and awake, setting everything up.
Let's talk about what happened in the room that morning. You leave the house, you go to McDonald's, and you're in the bathroom there for 7 minutes, is that correct?
I believe that's what the time showed.
Okay, and you don't leave the bathroom until Juliana calls you at 7:37, is that correct?
I believe that's the time. I don't have the time in front of me.
Okay, but as you're leaving the bathroom, you don't call 911,
I did not.
okay? And you don't tell Juliana to call 911.
No, I did not.
You don't run out of McDonald's. We've seen you on the video. You walk to your car.
I thought it looked like I was walking faster than normal.
Okay, but you're not concerned. You said at this point in time, you didn't have any reason to worry. You thought maybe she was just having an affair, another one, correct?
That was my original thought.
Okay, so out of curiosity, if she's having another affair, why are you going back to the house at all? Why didn't you tell Juliana just to go to the zoo with Valerie? Don't worry about it. It's just another affair.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to be telling Juliana about Christine's affairs. That's not something I would discuss with her.
Why not? You're having an affair with Juliana.
We discussed basically nothing about Christine together. She didn't want to know anything about Christine.
Okay, so you're leaving the McDonald's. You're heading back home to catch your wife in the affair then?
I was very unsure of what was going on at that point. It went through my mind that it was possibly going to be an affair, but I did not know what it was.
Okay, so when you arrive at the house, you're saying that Juliana brings Valerie in after you to the basement, is that correct?
Yes, and she also said that she followed me later. She didn't say that I told her.
Okay, and at that point in time, again, you're still thinking you're just busting your wife having sex with some guy.
I did not know, once again, exactly what was going on. That was a consideration, that it was possible that she was having an affair, but I did not know what was happening at that time.
Okay, but be it catching her in an affair or this question mark something else that you haven't defined, why wouldn't you tell the babysitter to take your daughter back outside?
I believed that she was safe in the basement. I thought they were okay there. I did not perceive that they were in danger at that time. I told them to stay at the car. I don't know why she chose to come to the house.
Okay, but you're law enforcement, and this is your house. You're not going to tell them what to do to ensure that they are safe when you have this doubt about what's going on?
I understand that, and it may have been a mistake that I didn't send them back out, and it's something that I've thought about many times.
Okay.
This is the first time while he's been on the stand that Brendan agrees that he made a mistake, which is fairly absurd given everything he has discussed thus far.
You indicated that you haven't drawn your gun until you're on the stairs up to the bedroom and can hear what you think are sex noises coming from the bedroom. Is that correct?
No, I stated that when I was on the main floor, I believed that the noises were sex, moaning, things like that. But later on, when I was climbing the stairs, I had already changed my thought, and I thought that what I believe are strikes sounded too sharp, too.
Right, your mind
Christine's
changed. It
Yes.
wasn't sex anymore now, it sounded bad.
Yes,
Okay, at that point in time, there's a lock on the outside of your basement door, correct?
yes.
Okay, you didn't lock the basement door, did you?
I'm not sure I've ever locked that.
Well, the lock is there, isn't it?
It was there when it came with the house. I don't believe I've ever used that lock at any point.
Okay, but it would have presumably kept your babysitter and your child from leaving the basement and following you, as we know Juliana did, up to the room where bad things were now happening, right?
I guess that's possible, but I never thought of that lock. It's not something that's in my general thought pattern, as it's not something we ever use.
Okay, so you followed your training and pulled your weapon and walked up the stairs with the gun out. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay. And when you turned and saw Juliana had followed you, at that point in time, you're worried that bad things are happening, correct?
yes, I am.
Did you tell her to call 911 at that point?
No, I was moving quickly towards the door.
Did you tell her to go back downstairs and get your daughter out of the house at that point?
I wasn't worried about Juliana at that point. I was worried about Christine.
Okay, and you weren't worried about your daughter at that point either then, right?
I don't think Valerie was on the top of my mind when I believed that Christine is being injured, and that was at the forefront of my mind.
So you get up to the room with your gun drawn and you see what's happening. You see Joe Ryan behind your naked wife with something metal in his hand. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And at that point in time, you yelled police, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't shoot.
No.
You did not yell for Juliana, who's behind you, to call 911.
I didn't know that Juliana was behind me or had climbed the stairs at that point. I had only seen her on the main floor leave at the door. I did not see her climb the stairs at that point.
Okay, but you told us that the foyer is this big echoey chamber that you can hear from anywhere in the house. If she's in the foyer and you're standing at the door, whether or not she's immediately behind you, if you yelled, call 911, she would hear you, wouldn't she, in this echoey foyer?
Yes, she would hear that.
Okay, but you didn't do that, did you?
I was focused on the tense situation that was in front of me.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm going to ask for just a moment while I log back in. Judge, if I can have the witness and counsel take a look at Commonwealth's 251. Mr. Banfield, is this the person that you saw when you entered the bedroom? Joseph
Yes.
Ryan? Yes?
Yes.
Judge, at this time, I'd offer Commonwealth's 251 into evidence.
Any objection?
Your Honor, object to relevance.
Overruled, 251 in evidence.
So this man, Joseph Ryan, planned to kill your wife, having left this completely discoverable trail on the internet. Is that correct?
I have no idea what his plans were.
Okay. So you think maybe he came for another reason and then at some point his mind changed?
I don't know.
Okay. Did he say anything to you that would lead you to believe that he stabbed your wife on the spur of the moment?
I mean, it appeared to be somewhat related to me telling him that I was going to arrest him. But besides that, I'm unsure.
Okay, well then let's nail this down. I thought you had said that when you entered the room, the knife is in his hand, the other hand's maybe on her neck, somewhere in her hair, and she's already bleeding, correct?
I believe that there was already blood in her hair.
Okay, so in your version of this, he had already stabbed her when you walked in the room.
I believe so.
Again, based entirely on the blood evidence, that had not happened. Joseph Ryan never came into contact with Christine's blood while she was alive. More importantly, Ryan had been lured to the home under the pretense that they were engaging in a consensual role-play scenario. He didn't want to hurt her, nor did he agree to injure her during the encounter. Ryan wasn't new to fetish, and safety would have been top of his mind for both him and his partner. Based on how he talked with who he believed to be Christine, he wanted to ensure that every part of the encounter was planned, so that it matched her desires. Brendan wants the public to hear what happened in this case and write off Ryan as a sexual deviant who couldn't control his lust, that he went to the home in order to assault Christine and leave him at that. But that's obviously not the case. Ryan believed that they were engaging in a consensual role play. He would have immediately stopped the moment Brendan made himself known, because he would feel threatened.
Okay, and you then saw him stab her.
I guess I'm not sure. It could have been at that same time that he already has the knife to her neck. So I don't know if that he stabbed her before or that it was at that point that the knife is already to her neck that the blood goes to her hair.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, let's go back then and talk about your testimony. You described that when you came in, Christine was moaning/yelled. You thought she was being stabbed. She went to her left and it seemed Joseph Ryan, was putting forward movement. That's what you testified to, right? So that would be the first stab that you saw.
The knife is inside of her hair, which would be at the location of her neck. I can't tell. Christine was yelling and obviously in pain. So I might think that she was already had the knife pressed to her at that point.
So we know from the medical examiner, and you know because you got to hear it, that she was stabbed 7 times and then had an 8th cutting wound, correct?
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but yes, that sounds familiar.
Brendan has once again begun to smile when talking about his wife's murder. He's being needlessly pedantic, stating that he doesn't remember exactly how many times she was stabbed.
Okay, and you've described for us that she's already bleeding and that you see a forward movement, but you can't really tell what happened, right? And then you told us a bit ago that there's an exchange between you and Joe Ryan. You tell him to let her go at least one more time after this exchange, and it appears that he forcefully stabs Christine. She spins away toward you and lands on her stomach on the ground. So there's one clear stab.
It's not towards me, it's away from me.
Okay, but that is one moment when you see Joe Ryan stab Christine, correct?
Yes, and then downward after she went to the floor. So
Okay,
there's
so you
only,
believe that's another stab?
I'm only positive of the 2.
Okay, so you've got 2. So there's 5 more. When did he stab her those other 5 times?
The knife is inside of her hair. I can't tell the movement. I can't tell how that is looking at that time. And I don't know exactly what happened before I arrived either.
Okay, well, she had to get 5 more wounds at some point. And you're telling us that when you get into the room, she's capable of speech, correct?
Yes,
Okay, she says a lot of stuff. She says that he's got a knife, right? Brendan, he's got a knife.
yes,
She says that. And she says at one point that she wants you to put more pressure on her neck, correct?
yes. She told me to put my hand there, and then she put more pressure on my hand.
And then at one point, she tells you she can't see, correct?
Yeah,
Okay. And all of this talking is happening with what at that point in time has to be all 7 of the wounds in her neck, correct?
yes.
Okay. Judge, if I can pull down the current display. Take a look at Commonwealth's previously admitted 23.
23 under seal.
I'm sorry, 22. I apologize.
22 under seal.
All right, and these are the wounds on the left side of her neck, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And if I can have the witness and the jury take a look at previously admitted Commonwealth's 25, also under seal. And these are the wounds on the right side of her neck, correct?
yes,
Okay, and she's chatting with you with these wounds in her neck, correct?
yes. Her voice is very hoarse. She was having difficulty speaking, but yes, she was talking to me.
Okay.
This was expertly done, because this is a point in the story that most people would overlook. Brendan's narrative makes very little sense if you know just how many times he stabbed her in the neck. According to his direct examination, Brendan claimed that the only stabs he witnessed were when Ryan declared that, quote, Christine was his, and, quote, she gave herself to me, unquote. But given the extent of her wounds, how she would have been reacting to being stabbed repeatedly in the neck, and the sheer amount of effort that it takes to stab through muscle and bone, the very concept that she didn't understand what was happening is absurd. Think about the last time you stubbed your toe, or got a paper cut. You likely jumped, cursed, or reacted in a way that later you might have felt embarrassed by. Our bodies react to pain, big and small, but Brendan wants the public to believe that his wife barely reacted to being stabbed in the neck, that she was able to somehow speak afterwards, and that her hair was curly enough to hide the sheer amount of force that was used by her killer. That sounds impossible. Brendan believed that he had somehow crafted the perfect story, that he had read through all the evidence against him and heard all the relevant testimony. He could recount every single detail in a way that destroyed the prosecution, but by simply pointing out these small discrepancies, his entire narrative falls apart.
So going back to Joe for a moment, you are not aware of what his plan was, whether it be to kill her or that may have just been something that happened while he was there, correct?
I know nothing about Joe Ryan prior to these interactions in the bedroom.
Okay. But you know from having sat through this trial what the Commonwealth's evidence is, right?
Yes,
Okay, and you know that he texted with someone on Christine's laptop that whole morning, correct?
yes,
And you know that he laid out his expected arrival time, correct?
I don't remember.
Okay. Did you catch that he stopped at Walmart on his way to your house and bought personal lubricant because your
Your Honor, I
wife?
object. She's
What's your legal objection?
talking about the case, and she's having him corroborate what their case is.
I don't know what that legal objection is. What's the legal?
It's not relevant.
Overruled.
I'm aware he went to Walmart.
I'm sorry, you're aware he went to Walmart, right?
Yes.
And then he bought personal lubricant for your wife, correct?
I guess.
Who
I don't
he may
know.
or may not have been intending to murder, correct?
I don't know why he brought personal lubricant.
Okay. He left his car parked in your driveway in broad daylight, which you saw, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and he left his 2 cell phones in his car per the instructions that your wife gave him on Telegram, correct?
I guess. I saw the pictures on the floor. I didn't know where they were.
Okay. You said that you heard what you thought initially were sex noises, right?
Yes,
Okay, but we know from the physical evidence recovery kits that were taken from both Mr. Ryan and your wife that there was no semen, no DNA from Mr. Ryan found in or around your wife's genitalia, correct?
that's my understanding.
Okay. So how long do you think passed between your instructions to Joe Ryan to put down the knife, let her go, let her go, let her go, and your wife is bleeding before you shot him?
Not that long, under a minute.
Under a minute. Okay, so if we were to count out 60 seconds, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth, that would be a minute. And in that time, you did not shoot him.
I did not shoot him, and I did not shoot him prior to Christine going to the floor.
Okay, and at that point in time that she's going to the floor, we're at least 6 stab wounds in, right?
To the best of my knowledge, it's hard to see. Also, I'm aiming down my sight at Joe, and so I'm not focused exactly on Christine. You have a narrowed view when you're aiming down a firearm.
And you just couldn't pull the trigger, could you?
I was afraid.
Okay. And you are a trained law enforcement officer, correct?
I am, but I have my shooting record is on the lower end for the qualifications, and there is not a lot, and there's very little space there. And I was afraid of hitting her.
Okay. Mr. Ryan did not have a gun, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
You also had handcuffs, correct?
Yes,
You didn't use those to apprehend Mr. Ryan, correct?
looking back on it, I should have handcuffed him after my shot. Would be something that I should have done looking back at it.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your weapons training. You said that you go to the range monthly to keep up on your skills. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say I go roughly every month, every other month, when I can.
Okay, so would it then surprise you that when you took Juliana in October of 2022, that you hadn't been since one time in April and one time in May of that year, and prior to that, not since 2020?
I was going to Blackfish Armory as my primary place. We had the Treasury Department had a contract with them, and I didn't have to pay for them, but the contract ended. And so then I went back to Silver Eagle Group.
When did the contract end?
I'm not sure, but Blackfish Armory actually went out of business. They were in Chantilly, so that was pretty close to me. So that's where I was primarily going prior to Silver Eagle Group.
Okay, but you were going to Silver Eagle Group in 2020, and then you went to Silver Eagle Group in April and May of 2022, and then in October and December when you took Juliana. So at what point in time did you transition to Silver Eagle Group?
I mean, I guess I came to Virginia in 2019, so I guess probably in 2019, 2020, 2021, it sounds like I was probably going to Blackfish Armory instead of Silver Eagle Group.
Well,
but I don't
without
know.
speculating, what do you remember doing?
That's not something that I remember the transition of exactly between the two.
Okay. Why did you teach Juliana to shoot?
It was something that we could do together. It was, in terms of many activities, it was something that was going to be out of the house. And generally when I could or she could, we would do activities together. It was something I was already going to do, and she wanted to come with me.
Okay. And you gave her the code to your safe in your bedroom, correct?
She realized that it was the same code as the door when I was putting away my gear during the day.
So your gun safe code is the same as the door code to your house that your child and wife and babysitter have access to?
They had their own codes, but my code was the same between my door and my safe in my car. It was the same for all of them.
Oh, okay. So Juliana didn't have the door code because that's how she got in and out of the house.
She had her own door code to get in and out of the house.
Okay, so you gave her the code to your safe.
Those are different. I have my own code to the door, and she has her own code to the door, and my mother has her own code to the door, and Christine has her own code to the door. She just, being next to me, going in and out of the house, knew my code.
So when you observed your babysitter picking up your code, because she was able to see, you didn't think that was a good time to change the code?
It wasn't a concern of mine at that point. I didn't think about it. Also, I don't think I've ever changed the code after the initial setup. It wasn't something that was on my mind.
Okay. Is that part of your law enforcement training, that it's okay for people to have the code to your gun safe?
I am aware that others in my department had family members that were aware that they knew the code, that they knew their codes.
Okay.
Is this a breaking time for lunch, or you let me know? Okay.
I only have a
That's
little
fine.
bit left, Judge. If I can have 10 more minutes.
That's fine.
I won't make
Let's do it.
everybody starve, but
Okay.
just a little bit. Thank you.
That's fine.
Do you have any life-saving training as a result of your law enforcement background?
A little bit.
A little bit, okay. And your life-saving training tells you that Juliana should be the one to call 911 while you are attending to Christine, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, but when Juliana hadn't called 911, you didn't think that was the time at which maybe you should do it?
I didn't realize that she didn't call 911 immediately because I was focused on Christine. So
Okay.
I wasn't looking at Juliana after I told her to call 911. I was looking at Christine.
Okay, so you're also then not aware that Juliana hung up on 911 15 minutes prior to the call where you spoke to them?
My awareness was that she made that original call in the upstairs room.
She made the original call in the upstairs room, and where were you?
No, my understanding is that she actually made the call originally while she was in the basement.
Oh,
As
not
per
in the
her,
upstairs, okay. Okay, so you weren't there then, is your contention?
I never heard her make the original call. I never saw her make the original call.
And you certainly didn't tell her to hang up the phone?
No, I knew nothing about the original call until far later.
Okay, so while you are tending to your wife and exchanging hand placement with her over the wounds that we saw, you did not at that point in time use the towel, the blanket, the sheet, or the other blanket to staunch the flow of blood from her neck?
It wasn't until I was instructed to by 911 to do that. Pressure is a different form of treatment that we were taught, and that is also what Christine was doing. I believe that was the best course of action at the time.
To put pressure on the wound that was so large that your finger went inside of it, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when first responders arrived, you agree you're on video holding her neck with your bare hand, correct?
I think so.
So where had the towel, the blanket, the sheet gone at that point,
I think
after
that-
you were instructed by 911?
I think the towel was right next to me, but
It was under your knees, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Okay,
I thought it was right next to me.
thank you. Nothing further, Judge.
The best part of the cross-examination is just how badly Brendan's story falls apart with minimal provocation. He made it clear that it was very important to him to be seen as brilliant in his direct examination. He worked in law enforcement with the IRS. He helped his daughter with her schoolwork. He's Brendan Banfield, the smartest guy around. He was raised by wolves, and yet his story could not possibly have happened the way he said it did. It would have been impossible for him not to have seen Christine being stabbed by Ryan had he only begun stabbing her when he entered the room. And if she had been stabbed before, the sheer amount of wounds would have been obvious. She wouldn't have been able to talk to him after the multiple stabs to her neck, despite him claiming she tearfully apologized before dying. And as the prosecution noted, he failed to do anything to actively staunch her wounds, instead choosing to put a towel under his knees instead of on her wound. The jury deliberated for less than 9 hours and found Banfield guilty of orchestrating the bizarre scheme, as well as killing Christine and Ryan and endangering Valerie by bringing her to her mother's sexual assault and murder. On June 5th, 2026, Brendan was set to be sentenced and was facing life in prison. In a bid to gain some leniency, he made the following statement to the court.
I'm greatly disappointed in the legal system. The system has failed not only me, but also Christine, my daughter Valerie, the Bensons, and the rest of my family. I was found guilty of a crime that I did not commit, but it's actually impossible to have committed the crime, as the prosecution, their experts, and their witnesses have presented. The prosecution and their witnesses' statements do not match the evidence. My rights to defend my family has been taken away, to defend my home and myself. This is a protected right that I'm sure everyone listening here knows they have. My right has been discarded. I'm being sentenced on an impossible set of circumstances. The prosecution's catfish theory was forced on detectives. Detectives did not agree with the catfish theory and were harassed, belittled, and then transferred out of their department unwillingly. 3 different digital forensic experts agreed there was no catfish. This includes Fairfax Detective Miller, their expert. This is a quote from his report. The event spanned over a 46-day period from 1/9/23 to 2/24/23. There's no indication that Christine lost control of her devices during that time. Christine is also active with these related specificialities to her during and around the relevant times. Christine also has a pattern of being active on her devices during the relevant times over the year leading up to the period. This will include consistent email and browser activity between the hours of 2300 and 100 hours. Although the not detailed, sorry. Detective Miller's report was sent for independent review to the University of Alabama for peer review. This is a best practice declared for digital forensics. Holly Kennedy of the University of Alabama agreed with Detective Miller's process and finding that there was no loss of device, no loss of dominion and control during this time. When Juliana was questioned about the details of the case, she was unable to verify or remember the information. Juliana did not know the password to Christine's phone, the laptop, the email account, the Telegram, or the FetLife accounts. She did not even know the name of the email account. How could she have accessed it without any of that information? Juliana claimed that she wrote messages but could not identify a single message that she wrote. Juliana said that the Gmail was created on the laptop when it was created on the phone, then said that I deleted the two-factor authentication, which was never deleted, never hidden, was still there. The Telegram application was also not hidden, always available on Christine's laptop. It was never uninstalled and reinstalled and was always available. When Juliana was questioned about the email account, this is her quote: "I was not the one logging in. It was Brendan who accessed the email. The question was then restated and resent and said again," and this is her second quote: "I was not the one logging in." The email account was accessed approximately 10 times while I was not home. This includes when I was in Maryland at FLETC, a secure government facility that required an appointment and ID verification to enter. If Juliana did not enter these email accounts, but they were still logged in, there's only one other person that could access these accounts, and that is Christine. There are also 2 instances where neither Juliana or I were home with the logins. This includes the morning of 2/24, when I had left for work and was seen on video at McDonald's, and Juliana had left the house. Her movements were tracked and verified by GPS. Her phone logged that she was parked in the cul-de-sac, and her Apple Watch had logged her steps leaving the home. And by her own testimony, she also stated that she had left the home. Yet after that, the laptop was then logged in and accessed again. There is no dispute that Joe Ryan brought the knife to my home. My DNA and fingerprints are not on the knife. Joe Ryan's DNA is on the knife, right at the junction of the handle and the blade. The DNA is right where you would expect it to be for someone who is forcefully using the knife. This is further verified by the injury that is on Joe's thumb in his hand. The medical examiner verified the injury on Joe's thumb could be caused by the knife. There are no injuries to my hands, nothing to indicate I ever held the knife. Joe's DNA is also under Joe Ryan's fingernails. Joe's DNA is also under Christine's fingernails, indicating that she tried to fight him off. Joe Ryan's hands have a mixture of Joe's and Christine's DNA. When he got back up and struck me in the back, it was transferred to the back of my jacket. Juliana's original statement on 2/24 stated that I never touched Joe. She repeated this again in both of her proffers and at trial. The prosecution has repeatedly said that I manipulated the scene and moved Joe Ryan. I never left Christine's side. I only tried to render aid to her. Juliana said that I poured blood on Joe. This does not match the findings of the medical examiner or the blood spatter expert, who described that these were transfers and were not as droplets. Christine obtained tickets to the zoo and sent them to Juliana. There was no prompting for this. Christine wrote the zoo on the calendar and in Juliana's schedule. Only Christine could have planned the meeting on 2/24. The meeting of Christine and Joe was confirmed over a week prior, but only Christine could have chosen 2/24 because she was scheduled to work. No one else would know that this day would be available. On 2/24, she had only requested off from work on February 23rd and had not informed anybody else that she was off until then. The Fairfax County Police Department never truly looked into Joe Ryan. No search warrant was ever conducted at Joe's residence. Only 2 women were interviewed about their relationship with Joe, and both found that they were very uncomfortable with him. Both chose not to see him again. One was so uncomfortable that she went to her therapist the next day. These are her quotes. She felt so out of place and that it was dirty and that he was uncomfortable towards her. I believe only one of Joe's friends was also interviewed. He stated that in a confrontation, Joe would choke or strangle somebody. This matches Joe's social media profile, saying that he studied neck snapping at Harvard. And to add to that, where was Christine stabbed? In the neck, which Joe seems to have a fondness for. These things are some of quotes from other people, not from me. Joe had previously also cut another woman. It's in his own messages, in his own words, that he was attracted to that. Separately, there's entire internal affairs videos about this case. So either Detective Bryant or Lieutenant Giacchio is lying based on what they said at trial, because Lieutenant Giacchio denied saying that Juliana was arrested as an innocent. Meanwhile, Detective Bryant said that was brought up to him by Giacchio in his internal affairs video. Both of them are under oath. So one of them would be committing a Giglio violation. Also, Detective Nielsen stated that Juliana was arrested to get her to flip, and there was no other reason provided. Christine was a wonderful and loving person. Just as you heard from many of the people here, she was a loving and compassionate nurse. During COVID, she volunteered to take care of many of the people that were sick and struggling. She signed up for extra shifts. She signed up for vaccination clinics. She cared for her daughter. She enrolled her in dance lessons. She was there for recitals. I loved her very much, despite what you may think of my affairs. Our marriage worked for us. It wasn't something that I looked to end. It was told to other women that I was never going to leave Christine. That was always how it was said. Christine cared very much for her family and friends. I'm not trying to diminish in any way what her life was. She truly was a caring mother, a caring wife, a loving nurse. But I am not responsible for her death. This is not a knife that I ever held in my hand, and I never stabbed her. Thank you.
Unsurprisingly, his statement did little to earn any favor with the court. He purposely misinterpreted evidence to make it appear as if he was being unfairly penalized and was the ultimate victim in his wife's murder. He was sentenced to life without parole. Juliana was sentenced to 10 years in prison for her part, and following her sentence, will be deported back to Brazil. This case was one of the most frustrating we've ever had to cover, given how truly remarkable Christine was and how boring Brendan is. Her life was cut short by two deeply selfish people who refused to see her as a person. She was an obstacle to them, a person who wasn't even worth the smallest bit of respect, and they sought to destroy her even after death. The sad reality is that Brendan is one of the most unremarkable men we've ever covered. He did nothing worthwhile with his life and probably won't be remembered, but Christine should be. So if you've made it to this part of the video, thank you for watching. Have a great day and remember, stay safe.